Hello, this is Joe. Welcome back to the channel. I think it's a good idea to have the record or the memory of your typewriter journey. And unfortunately, the early days of my typewriter journey, I didn't pay attention. I didn't write down an example. In the 1980s, I know I had an SE100 Smith Corona daisy wheel typewriter, but I also had a light gray Royal typewriter with the red badge that pushes in to release the ribbon cover, and I seem to think it was a squarish looking one, not the Royal Futura, so it must have been a full-size standard typewriter. Anyways, I don't remember where I got that typewriter. All I know is that in the late 1990s, I had put both the daisy wheel and that typewriter in my storage shed. I remember them being in there on the floor, and I eventually, in one of my periodic rounds of cleaning out the storage shed, I gave them away or whatever. But in the very early 2000s, in the early aughts, I once again got interested in typewriters, and I remember going to John Lewis's shop, and I bought an Adler, a medium-sized Adler. I didn't know anything about typewriter brands at the time, but I asked John, I need a good solid typewriter for writing, and he recommended the Adler. And I probably paid around $75 or $80 for it back in the early aughts, reconditioned by John. But I was such a neophyte that I didn't have the hand strength for typing on a manual. I thought it was a little stiff and hard to type on, and I also think I wasn't really pleased with the cloth ribbon imprint because I was used to daisy wheel typewriters and their film imprint. At some time in the early aughts, maybe 6-9 months, a year or two after, I can't remember how long, I brought the Adler back and kind of traded it back to John, and then he applied it toward the purchase of my first Royal Mercury. It wasn't until I got the Royal Mercury that I really became kind of self-conscious or self-aware of typewriters, portable typewriters, and the whole typosphere movement, and that's where it started for me. But just a few weeks ago, John Lewis called me, and he's in the process, it's a long process, he's in the process of closing down his shop. His shop is in a building with a bunch of rooms in the back of the shop that has parts machines and all kinds of machines. He's trying to clear those out. He calls me and says, Joe, I have a typewriter for you. And it's this. It's an Adler J3. Now, I don't know, the Adler that I had in the early aughts, I don't know if it was a J3, but it was kind of this rough color, beige-ish color. So anyways, I have a J3. It wasn't cleaned up or fixed or anything. It was as is, and I had to service it myself. But I love this machine. And right up front, I can say there is a lesson here, which is that your tastes and your likes and dislikes will change as your evolution happens, as the journey of your typewriter journey progresses. And that's the case with me. I love this Adler. I love the touch of the keys. I love the way it types. And I also have a couple other medium-sized German-made typewriters from this rough same era. I have a Olympia SM3 and the Optima Super. So I thought it would be a fun comparison. Let's look at the Adler J3, and then let's kind of compare it with those other two German medium-sized portables. So this is a very attractive typewriter, I think. I love the lines on it. It is a bit angular, but also has some Art Deco stylings to it as we turn it around here. So this is the original dealer sticker in Boulder, Colorado. And there was this second dealer sticker on the left side of the machine from Universal City, California. So the machine appears to have been purchased originally in Boulder, Colorado, and made its way out to California during its history. So there is a carriage lock on the right side of the machine. You push it forward to release the carriage. And also, once the carriage is locked, you can't shift it. The shifting is locked when the carriage is locked. So we have a nice long space bar in the front of the machine. This is quite long and it's very convenient. So shift and shift lock. So the lock button, as you can see, only the left side shift button goes down. So to clear the shift lock, you have to use only the left-hand shift button. The right-hand shift is independent of the shift lock. The bichrome switch is on the left side right above the shift lock, And this round key, which is kind of odd shaped compared to the rest of the keys, that is the margin release. On the right side is the backspace, the tab key, and the tab plus and clear key. This keyboard has a number 1 key and an exclamation mark, so it is a more modern keyboard, this machine having been made in 1963. As I turn the machine to its right side, there are 3 prominent levers on the right side. The one in the back is the all tab clear. That clears all the tabs at once. The one in the middle is the carriage release, and the one in the front is the paper release. We have some nice stylish margin controls, press and slide margin controls. So you can see the push and slide knob, and then the actual pointer to the control is just to the left of it as you're viewing it. And then on the other margin control, it's interesting as it's also the same orientation. The pointer is to the user's right, your left as you're watching it now. It seems like the scale, the margin scale, and the pointer themselves are not really visible from the user's perspective. You kind of have to stand up a little bit and look over to see the scale. That might be my only criticism of the margin system, but the controls themselves are very easy to reach, and they have that beautiful Art Deco grooved design. It has a paper support finger that pops up and is telescoping. It is operated by this little button right here. And then on the left side of the carriage, we have the left-hand carriage release lever and the line spacing disconnect, which is the temporary variable. The permanent line spacing disconnect is by pulling out the left platen knob. There is a scale back here for the margins. The margins have their own scale. The paper bale has its own scale, and the paper bale has 2 rubber paper bale rollers. There are 3 line spacing settings that are operated by this lever, 1, 1.5, and 2 line spacing. The bell on this machine is rather gentle sounding, but effective nonetheless. I like the Art Deco Adler logo with the eagle above it. These logos were originally plated in a silverish finish, and they had been worn off. I used a silverish colored Sharpie marker to touch up the surfaces of the logo. So the ribbon cover pops right off like that. It is also made of plastic. It has a nice metal core stud with a plastic exterior on both sides of the ribbon cover, and those 2 studs engage in these 2 holes in the body to secure the ribbon cover on. There are these 2 metal supports on either side of the type guide that help support the ribbon cover. Each of the ribbon spools has a back tension lever, a spring-loaded back tension lever, and there is good amount of back tension on these levers, so it keeps the ribbon at the right tension, which is important, I think, for proper ribbon feed, and also to keep the ribbon from becoming too slack and causing smearing of ink on the paper. Right here is the forked guide for the ribbon reverse. There is no manual ribbon reverse lever. If you pull off the ribbon cover, right here on either side of the basket, there are 2 levers that you can use to slide back and forth, and you can manually reverse the ribbon that way. So here I'm going to hold the spacebar down and operate a key. You can see the left spool is the take-up spool. And now if I simulate the eyelet hitting here, it will now reverse the spool direction. So now the right-hand spool is the take-up spool, and the left-hand spool is the supply spool. And if we again simulate an eyelet hitting it, it will again reverse back the other way. So this is a good way to test your ribbon reverse. Hold the spacebar down so the carriage doesn't move, and you can operate the keys and operate the ribbon system like that to test it. So the type bar rest on this machine is a gray rubber tubing that goes along the bracket here. It's a nice quality type bar rest, and it's in still really good shape. Doesn't have any degradation and no stickiness either, which is kind of surprising. So you might notice the 2 card guides, the plastic guides, are quite long. They extend for most of the length of the platen, and the distance between the top of the card guide and the start of the rubber rollers on the paper bale is very short, only a few millimeters. And this has the effect that when you feed paper in the machine, it usually will feed the paper easily underneath the paper bale without you having to lift the paper bale, which is a really nice feature. I wish more machines were like that. The only other two that I know of that do this consistently well are the Hermes 3000 and the Olivetti Studio 44. And as you might be able to notice, when you release the paper feed rollers by pushing this lever forward, it also raises up the paper bale slightly so you can pull out the paper quite easily. So I do like the touch of this machine quite a bit, and I also notice that the keys, it seems like the keystroke is rather deep compared to some machines, certainly deeper than a lot of small portables. So I was interested here in measuring the depth of the keystroke. So I have a pair of calipers. I'll just pick one of the keys in the middle. Let's say the H, for instance. I'm going to put this down on the little platform this is sitting on. And then I'm going to rest the reference point of the caliper against the top of the keycap right there. And then I'm going to zero the caliper. And then we'll push the keycap all the way down. And it's reading about 16.66, 16.7. So somewhere between 16.5 and 17 millimeters of a keystroke depth. As I recall, it's a little bit deeper than some of the machines I've measured. So maybe that has something to do with why I like the touch, is because you're distributing the force from your finger across a deeper keystroke. I think the carriage return lever is one of the most stylish aspects of this machine, both from the side view as well as from the front view. So one thing I noticed about the design of the carriage race for the bearings for the carriage are is a lot of American-made machines, the carriage race is made from bent sheet metal, but on this machine it is machined steel. This groove in here where the bearings are is machined, not bent, and as a consequence the carriage moves exceedingly smooth. In fact, it reminds me of the Facet 1620. I really think this is one of the smoothest carriages that I've seen. So this is a carriage shifted machine. So carriage shifting is sometimes unpleasant for some people. There are a set of adjustments for the tension of the carriage, or how much tension the assist springs give you. So this nut and screw here, and there's one on the other side, and you basically adjust the tension of the lifting spring with this nut and screw to give how much assistance the carriage has with its lifting when you're shifting it. Keeping in mind, if you make the tension too light, the carriage will bounce when you release it, and that'll cause you to have potentially dropped letters. The subsequent letter after the capital might be a dropped lower below the line printing when the carriage is mid-bounce when you're printing that second letter, caused by this to be too light. So you can't really lighten it up too much, but there is some adjustment available here. Probably the biggest flaw in this machine is how it mounts into the case. So you have a hole here that's about 1 centimeter in diameter. There's one on the other side of the machine. And there are a set of rubber bushings in the base of the case that sit into this hole. And then there's a lever on each one of those bushings that you flip, and it's supposed to expand the rubber bushing, swell up enough to grip the hole and hold the machine in its case. And this is a trouble-prone design, and most people who have these typewriters have had to replace the rubber bushings or in some way make that mounting system work. So the case itself is made rather solidly. There's a pretty rugged handle, and these two little levers you push toward each other, pinch them together, and the case will open up like that. The back lip of the case right here is designed to fit over the back lip. So this back lip of the case bottom, this like U channel, is where the back lip of the upper part of the case fits into. So it's rather narrow, and so when you do fit it in there, you want to make sure it is captured before you lock the case down. What you might take note of are these two metal fittings here. Those are associated with these two locking devices. This one has the existing rubber on it. This one here on the right side was missing the rubber completely. So when you set the typewriter down into the base here, this bushing is supposed to fit into one of the holes, and then when you pull this lever toward you, it expands out. It pushes the bushing down, squeezes it, expands it out, and that is how it's supposed to hold the typewriter in the case. Now you can imagine if you had it in the case captive like that for decades, this rubber is in a permanent state of being squeezed and it's not going to last. It's going to harden up, disintegrate eventually, and the case will not hold the typewriter in position. So there is a metal fitting on the bottom of this bushing. There is a stud that comes through. There's a metal washer on top. There is a C-clip. The C-clip fits into a groove on the tip of that stud, and then when you pull this lever, because of the shape of the plastic here, it's pulling the stud down, and that metal washer compresses the rubber bushing. So the one here on the right side, the rubber was completely gone. So I tried several different fixes, and eventually I found that this kind of rubbery art gum art eraser, it's the blue version of the Pink Pearl. It's not a Pink Pearl brand, but it's a similar kind of rubbery eraser. I cut a bushing for it, drilled a hole in it. I'm not really sure how long it's going to last, and to be honest with you, when you're carrying the typewriter in the case by the handle, there's a good chance that the typewriter will shake itself loose from those mounting studs, perhaps. I don't really trust it to carry it for a long distance that way. What happens is it falls to the back of the case and some of those levers on the back of the carriage get bumped. And so far, they haven't been broken. Well, so I have the Olympia SM3 to your right with the Adler J3 to your left. So we'll do a little bit of comparison here. First of all, the weight. The Adler is 5.19 kilograms, or about 11.45 pounds. The SM3 is 14.4 pounds, or 6.5 kilograms. So the SM3 is considerably heavier than the J3, and part of the reason might be because the SM3 has all metal body panels. All the body shell, including ribbon cover, is metal, whereas on the J3, the body shell's plastic, ribbon cover is plastic. But let's look at the features here. First of all, the SM3 is a tabulator keyboard, but it has tab slugs in the back. This one has 6 of these tab stops that you can slide and move around. J3, on the other hand, of course, has the keyset tabulator. So the advantage there goes to the J3. They both have a scale on the paper bail. I think I like the scale on the SM3 a little bit better because it has a centering arrow, a red arrow in the middle that tells you where the middle of the paper is. They both have a margin scale in the back here. The SM3's is more readable from the user's position because it's sloped toward the user, and the little red arrows on the margin sets are more visible from the user, whereas on the J3, they're kind of invisible. You have to kind of stand up and look over the carriage to see them. The J3 has the master tab all clear lever, where the SM3 is a manual tab system, so it wouldn't have that. They both have the same line spacing options. They're both carriage shift machines. Right now, the Adler feels a little bit lighter shifting, and we might attribute that to the fact that perhaps its carriage is a little lighter in weight, right? The SM3, this one, is a little older of a keyboard. It does not have a number 1, whereas this is a 1963. I think the SM3 here is maybe 1957. This is a 1963, so 6 years newer, and it has a more modern keyboard, of course. The backspace on the SM3 is on the right side of the keyboard, as is it on the J3, slightly different positions. And margin release is in the same location, although, as I said, the margin release button on the J3 is kind of an odd round-looking thing. And then the bichrome setting are on the opposite sides of the keyboards, on the left side for the J3, on the right side for the Olympia. Both machines have a nice wide space bar. A J3, of course, has the biggest problem of these two is the way it's held into the case itself, whereas the Olympia has nice positive locking levers. It has a superior design for how it locks into the case. So no question, the Olympia wins as far as the case design, but I really think that as far as the touch is concerned, the action on them, this J3 is awful nice. Nothing wrong with the SM3 at all. They're wonderful machines, but the J3 really is a neat feeling typewriter to type on. As far as the depth of the keystroke on the SM3, let's press it down. That looks to be 18.3, so actually the SM3 has slightly deeper keystroke than the J3. Now, as far as the width of the keyboards, I measured from the left edge of the Q key to the left edge of the fraction key 18.5 centimeters on the SM3. It was 19 centimeters on the J3. J3 has a slightly wider keyboard, so maybe that's part of the reason why I really like it. So I think in summary, between these two machines, SM3 has superior build quality. It has superior case construction, and the locking mechanism is far superior. But the J3 is lighter in weight. It has a more spacious keyboard, and I think the touch on it, although the SM3 is great, the touch is, I think, slightly better for me on the J3. Now, that's oftentimes a subjective thing. Well, now we have another German-made medium-sized portable, the Optima Super. This one was made in, I think, 60 or 61. So it has all metal body shells similar to the SM3. And it actually weighs, well, I'm using my bathroom scale because my little small digital scale doesn't have the range for these two heavier machines. But it says it weighs 14.4 pounds, the same weight as the SM3. Okay, very similar. I could believe it because it's a metal body shell machine. So as far as the layouts, well, this Optima is a full tabulator system. It has the tab key itself is to the right of the space bar, and the tab set is the button to the left of the space bar, and there is a tab clear right here. I think it clears all of them. I'm not sure. It might be individuals. Anyways, the backspace is on the right side like it is on the J3. The margin release is on the left, shift and shift lock. This is an older keyboard. It does not have a number 1. It is a very nice machine. I've enjoyed using the Optima Super a lot. It also has the articulated or spring-loaded plastic card guides similar to the SM3, a little bit smaller. It was made in Soviet-occupied East Germany, but made by Germans, and it was made in the old Olympia factory. So this one is 15.3 millimeter keystroke depth. So this one's a little shallower than the other two machines. So as far as the width of the QWERTY row, I measured again from the left edge of the Q key to the left edge of the fraction key, 18.4 centimeters on the Optima and 19 on the J3. So again, the J3 has the widest keyboard of all three of these machines, which I find interesting, and I do agree in the sense of the way it feels. It definitely feels less crowded when I'm typing. Now, if we look at the case bottom for the Optima Super, first of all, the strap that attaches to the top half of the case is built into the bottom, and it swivels around so you can get it out of the way. But the device that holds the Optima Super to its case bottom are these metal studs. They're like mushroom-shaped, and there are rubber bushings with holes in the 4 feet, and this basically fits down into those holes securely. I haven't had any problems with either those feet rotting out or the holding power coming loose. In fact, it holds it almost too secure. It takes quite a bit of finger force to pop it loose out of the base, which is why oftentimes I just use the machine in its base and fold the strap out of the way so I can use it without it being a nuisance. So I would say if you were to rate all three of these machines by their cases and the way that the machine is secured in the case, I'd say the Olympia comes on tops, the Optima comes second, and unfortunately, for all of its other good attributes, the J3's case mechanism is poorly designed. There's one thing also that I don't like about the case bottom on the Optima Super is these two hinges back here. They will scrape on your table when you go to pick the typewriter up like that. It will scrape the furniture, scrape the table surface. So that's something to be aware of. And this is the shelf that I keep the Optima Super on, and you can certainly see the grooving and scratching in this shelf from pulling the typewriter in and out. This Adler is a joy to type on, and I love the looks of it as well. And I really do see it being a regular usable typewriter in my collection. Maybe more so than my wife's Olympia SM3, I believe. Oh, sure, there's a couple things that are not perfect. Like, for instance, it happens to be a carriage shift machine and not a segment shift, and it has a plastic body instead of the metal body of those other two German machines. And probably the most glaring problem is the way that the machine locks into the case bottom. But besides that, it's a wonderful machine. Even the ribbon. I don't know if John put a fresh ribbon in this when he gave it to me, but he says it was right out of the back room. But it is a dark, inky, wonderful ribbon. And it also has with it the memories of John Lewis. As he eventually closes his shop, he will be continuing to do typewriter repairs out of his home, I understand. But anyways, it is a memory of Mr. Lewis, his career, and how I've bought so many typewriters from him. And that is a nice thing. That's a nice memory to have. But this is just a wonderful machine. And I really think that you should look at how your likes and dislikes of typewriters change over time as your person evolves. And that certainly happened to me. I can say that 25 years ago, I would not have appreciated this machine the way I do now. So, you don't have to have a huge collection, but you should have a collection where there's one or two machines that you just love more than all the others. And if you do that, enjoy the machine, be creative with it, pour your heart out through that machine onto paper. And as always, stay creative and have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye for now.